For the first time in recorded history, there are now more liberals than conservatives in America, and I've got a chart to prove it. Let's take a look at this. This is data coming from Gallup, and the first thing you're going to notice is that on top you've got the conservatives in the dark green, the liberals below in the light green. There's a very large gap between the two in 1999, and that stays largely constant throughout the 90s, throughout the following decade. But finally, earlier this year, they meet at 31. And so you're going to say, John, you said there are more, and in fact they're both at 31, and that is true, but this is a trend we're talking about, and there's been a few months since then, so the liberals probably do actually outnumber them. So that's the data, but why is that? Why have those numbers changed so much? And so we've got a couple of potential explanations for it. The first is that Democrats are actually identifying as liberals now. We tend to think of those things as having a massive overlap, but they did not have as strong a correlation decades ago as they do now. So since 1999, that group, being Democrats, has gone from 35% liberal to 53% liberal, and from 20% conservative to 14% conservative. Now, on the other hand, Republicans and Republican leaners, by contrast, have barely budged. And so some of this is people not necessarily becoming more liberal, but being willing to actually identify themselves as liberal when someone calls them on the phone and asks them. Now, why is that? Well, if you were listening to the news in the 90s, you probably know that the only time you even heard the word liberal was when it was being besmirched or defamed on Fox News or any of the other mainstream news outlets, in fact. That was how it was used. It was a bad word, and you did not want to identify with it, which is why many Democratic presidential nominees did not openly call themselves liberals. But we don't live in the 90s anymore, and now we have the internet, and we have liberal websites, and we have TYT, and we have some shows, at least on MSNBC, and we no longer have to be scared to call ourselves liberals or progressives or whatever you want. And so some people are simply identifying as liberals when they wouldn't have in the past. But that is what the news is going to mainly attribute this to, and I don't think that that's the entirety of it. I think that some people who would not previously have been liberals have moved on it. We're not the same on many issues, on gay marriage, on our views on race in many ways, and the war on drugs. We now have different views, and those views are more liberal than they were back in the 90s, and that is a good thing. And so for a long time, 50, 60 years, we had more conservatives in America than liberals, or at the very least, that was the way it was portrayed. And despite this new data, Fox News is going to continue to say that this is a center-right country, or maybe even a right-wing country. But they are wrong, and we finally got the data to prove it. And that's my final judgment.